Hi, John Browning. How's your day going, sir?
My day is going fantastic. Beautiful sunshine and just a great day so far.
Well, that's great. I can concur with that. We have sunshine this week. Last week it was nothing but rain after rain after rain, which was really interesting. And but it was good because my grass went from being straw to being grass again. So
Well, that's good.
it
Yeah.
is good.
It
And then
looks better when it's green.
it really does. The neighbors appreciate it. So I want to talk today about mistakes
Hmm.
and some of the mistakes that people make that they may not even be realizing they're making as they're putting together a financial portfolio. There's just a lot to it. And you help people do that all day, every day. You help them build a life that's backed by and supported by their portfolio. But in your book, I remember somewhere you wrote about mistakes and different things. So that's what I want to talk about today. What do you have to share with us?
Well, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I've made so many of them. And
Well,
really, it's what experience is made of, right?
yeah.
There's, I think I mentioned this in the book too. There's a difference between having the right experience and sort of somebody who's gone to work and done the same thing every day for 30 years has the same day of experience or same year of experience for the past 30 years
Over and over, yeah.
and over again. One of the things that I've been, and it didn't seem like it at the time, but really blessed to have happen to me is I've had a lot of different experiences over the past 30 or so years of my life and in investing. And what that means really is that I've made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And I've learned what those mistakes are, and I've learned the questions to ask. But to your point, there are some pretty common mistakes, and of course, we'd be here all day if I talked about all the different mistakes that you could make.
Sure.
But there's some really common ones, and some of them are perpetuated by the media, and
Mm-hmm.
what you hear on TV, what you read on the internet. One of the things that is happening today in particular during we're in the middle, I hope we're in the at least in the middle or hopefully on the last side of it, this pandemic that
Yeah.
just lingers on. And with that there's this strange phenomenon that has happened, and this has happened before, where individual investors, they've got a little bit more time on their hand, and they're maybe just a little bit concerned and getting a little bit, we'll call it maybe desperate.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking for answers. How do I make money? How do I feed my family? And I have seen so many advertisements coming out about how to make 1,000% in 2 days, or
Yep.
whatever the advertisement is. And I'm just going to say it. That is not possible. Okay. The only way that's possible is if you get lucky.
Mm-hmm.
No skill is going to generate that on a consistent basis. And so one of the big mistakes that people make is getting desperate, getting emotional, and buying in literally sometimes to the training or the idea that they can actually do this themselves and make big money in the market. And it's really a horrible thing for me to see, because you're also seeing many more of these free online trading, and the accounts are being opened up in the hundreds of thousands,
Mm-hmm.
new accounts every single day. And so doing it yourself without understanding the risks involved is probably the single biggest mistake that we see. Um,
Well, and
there's
that's good. And correct me if I'm wrong, John. But what came to me as you were talking about that is the underlying current of greed. Really, I want 1,000. I want a get rich quick scheme to get me out of my situation or something. Pursuing that is always a mistake, right? And versus having a long term plan and things. But that's what came to me when you were saying that. Do you,
Yeah, it's really a combination of that now. I mean, there's always been the whole greed and I want all this money right now, but there's also this desperation that's creeping into people's mindsets now because of this odd situation in history that we're in. And that's what the kind of, I feel sad
yeah.
about that. And you just well-meaning people that are just getting to the point where they're desperate and they're looking ahead and they don't have much further to go before they're literally going to lose the house, maybe not even have money to buy food, certainly not to pay utilities and all of that. And then they go into this, essentially it's gambling, and and then they lose it faster. So it's a real problem right now, again, in this unique time in our history. So you've got both sides of that, the greed and the desperation sneaking in there. So I think
the desperation. I had not really thought about desperation, and that plays into it. And with that desperation, probably a lack of you lose hope, or you start losing hope, and that would drive you to take those risks, try to be greedy. Maybe that's interesting. The desperation.
Yeah, and I've even seen it with very intelligent, smart individuals. When you get desperate, you start not thinking clearly. So,
well, and all the more reason, John, when you're not thinking clearly, is to have a third party like yourself that can help bring a clarity. Because when your clients stop thinking clearly, hopefully they're picking up the phone and saying, "John, we need to sell," and you're saying, "No, let's talk. What's the plan? What's the lot?" Right?
right.
So having a third party like yourself to get us through those ups and downs, because we're in the midst of a pandemic. It won't be the last. Something else is going to happen, right? And so you've got to have a plan. You've got to have that, what we're going to talk about in an upcoming episode, that comprehensive financial plan that encompasses, well, shall I say, everything in life. It's not just the finances. It's all about building that life that you really want, a life that is not filled with greed or desperation because you've planned well and you haven't overextended yourself. All of that plays into the picture. But having somebody like you, John, that they can reach out to, that you mentioned a couple episodes ago, you talk with your clients regularly, and you send out emails to your clients, and you're that voice of reason, I guess is what I want to say, right?
Well, I try to be, right? That's the idea.
Yeah. Well, and that's good. Very much like your mom was a voice of reason for you.
That's right. Yeah.
We all need that, especially when we're in situations like this, if we're listening to the news all the time and reading the newspapers or the magazines or the internet, the world is crumbling around us, and that causes us to be desperate. I like that word. That's a very good word to describe how people are feeling right now. And instead of being desperate, they need to feel at peace and confident. And that comes when you have a financial plan in place, right?
That's right. And knowing what comes next, even if there's a detour along that roadmap, knowing what you're going to do when that detour comes up. And that's one of the other mistakes that people often make is, well, I'm just putting away X number of dollars every month, and all that's good. That's a good thing, but not understanding what the plan is behind that. And so it's not working as efficiently as it could. So that's another very, very common mistake. If I just put away $50 a week or $100 a month or whatever it might be, then it'll just happen miraculously, right? That I'll suddenly end up with everything I need in retirement or whatever my goal might be.
Mm-hmm.
Another common mistake. Probably one of the bigger mistakes that we see is not being diversified enough. So, and that can creep in there because there's been so much in the news and really smart people saying that, well, you just invest in the index and everything will be fine. And what I've said this before, I believe, is that right this very second, you look at the S&P 500, which is the most common index that people look at right now to describe the market. 25% of that index right now is in 5 stocks, not 500, 5.
Wow.
And they're the big ones, and they're growing really, really fast, and that's great, right? And that's where you've got to question whether or not you really want to be beating or even meeting the index, because at some point, does that party end? You don't know. I don't know. They're great companies. We like those businesses. But do you want to be that overweighted to it? And most people don't realize that they are. The same thing, by the way, they'll say, well, that's okay. I own the S&P 500 index, and I also own the NASDAQ 100, which is more geared towards smaller stocks and technology stocks. And guess what? Those same 5 stocks make up about a third of the NASDAQ 100. So if you buy both of them together, you just increased your holdings in those. So you may not be as diversified as you think that you are.
That's fascinating. That would be worth a podcast in and of itself to talk about diversification and things like that, because I would never have thought about that, of how you're overlapping, but really you're buying the same stocks, right? And if those 5 companies, if something should happen to 2 or 3 of them, guess what's going to happen to your portfolio? Which is, that's going to affect your emotions, and you're going to become desperate. And that's fascinating. I like that. That would be a very interesting topic about how not to make the mistake. All right, I guess, diversification is probably a good thing, but knowing what you're diversified in and how it all plays out. And that's why, you, John, and Guardian Rock Wealth, I mean, you guys study this stuff. You know all these things. If you would have asked me, if we take a poll of our listeners, I bet none of them could have told you what you just said.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. It's not something that just everyone knows, but I live it every day, and sometimes I take it for granted. But most people just aren't thinking about that because they're doing what they do and they're living their lives.
All the more reason to have you, John, helping build a life, a portfolio, because I love what I do, John. And you love what you do. I don't want to do what you do.
Yeah, most people don't. Yeah.
I think that's how most of your clients probably are. And that's where that trust comes in, to get to know your clients. And you're not like the big houses where you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of investors. You're more like a small Hawaiian little coffee shop, right? You have your clients coming in and you're talking with them. You get to know them. You probably greet them by saying aloha. But it's understanding your clientele and helping them navigate, whether it's a pandemic, or whether it's a kid going to college, or whether it's, I want to retire in 3 years, John. How am I doing? Am I close? And you can help them navigate that, to help them build a life that's full of peace and whatever they want, whether they want to travel the world or just sit in their house and give to missions, or what's their dream.
Right.
And then you bring to bear all of your mistakes from the past, right, that you've learned from, and your knowledge and your wisdom to say, here's how we get there, and it's going to be okay.
Right.
That's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just encourage you to reach out to John. He's got a book called Build a Life, Not a Portfolio. You can get a copy at his website, guardianrockwealth.com. You can also schedule a call with John there. You can email him from there. And you can talk about these things about, how can you get through life and in retirement, that I want to talk about in another episode, John. Some of the, maybe some of the pitfalls in retirement, some of the things with taxes and different aspects. But being able to put those plans in place a few years before you hit retirement is really important. And John can help you navigate all of that and have discussions around how to build your life the way you want it to be. And not only is he excellent at financial advising and financial planning, he's a great guy, but he asks some really penetrating questions that make you really think about, well, why do you want that? We talked a couple episodes about how to be a millionaire. Why do you want to be a millionaire? You may not need that. There may be other things that are more important to you. And John has these questions and relationships with his clients. So reach out to John, guardianrockwealth.com, and learn about mistakes you shouldn't be making. And you can read about them in his book. So, John, thanks again, man, for another great episode on mistakes. And I look forward to talking with you next time.
All right. Sounds great. We'll see you next time.